Okay guys, we're here looking at the Archer CR700 TP-Link cable modem router. This is a cable modem for Time Warner, Comcast, a couple others, so just check the description. It's a DOCSIS 3.0. It's wireless AC1750, and this is the part that I like about it essentially. It can broadcast over two networks, two wireless networks at the same time. An older style 2.4 gigahertz network, which most of your devices will use, and then a newer 5 gigahertz channel, which all new cell phones, many new laptops, you know, it's the new standard. It's better, it's faster, it's maybe even twice as fast, depending. And there's less interference on it. Like 2.4 gigahertz, you get interference on your from your Bluetooth, you get interference from your microwave and your neighbors, you know. So 5 gigahertz channel is amazing. Okay, we'll come up here and look at the router itself. To set it up, we're going to start by plugging in the cable itself. The cable modem into, or the cable into the cable modem, and we get that securely screwed in there. There we go. And we will plug this in to power, and at this juncture you should call your cable company and tell them you want to activate a modem. You'll need to give them the information on the bottom here, like your MAC address and things like that. It's all right here on the bottom. I'm not going to show you mine. I don't know if there could be anything bad about that. You got your Ethernet plugs, of course, and you got, here is another nice little feature. You got two USB ports, and these USB ports you can plug a printer in, or you can plug a USB storage device in, and it'll be a network device then. But my printer already is a network device, and I don't truly need a network storage device at the moment. I probably will in the future, but, you know, not yet, at least. And then here we have two buttons. One's probably reset, and one is probably the way to sync wireless devices without having to put in the passwords and stuff, but I generally don't use that, so I don't have much to say about that. And, yeah, at this point, you should be talking to your cable company, telling them you want to activate this modem, giving them the information they ask for, and when you're done with this, I'll move on to the next section. Oh, and I just got a text. But when you're done with this part, when you're done talking to them, plug in anything you want. If you have wired devices, plug it in. I have a lot, but I just have them unplugged right now. And then, yeah. Hey guys, we're here looking at the router, our TP-Link Archer CR700, and we just want to open a browser and navigate to 192.168.1.1 is the default IP address of the router. The default username and password should be admin and admin, or possibly admin and pass, or admin and password. I'm not sure. I've since changed mine, but it's definitely one of those three things. Once you log in, maybe the first thing we ought to do is move over to Advanced and come down here to System Tools and Administrator, and let's change those passwords. You know, type in your old password, type in your new password, confirm your new password, and, you know, save. There you go. Remote config management, you probably don't need to mess with this, and if you want to, you probably don't need me to tell you how it works. And we'll come back to the advanced tab in a bit, but for most people you'll probably only need the basics, and you know, like this is the main page right here. I tend to need to know the IP addresses of my devices, so I tend to come here and click on wired or wireless or whatever and check out their IP addresses. Over here you see a printer and a USB disk, and basically this router has the capability of plugging a USB printer or USB storage device into the back of it, and it would it would broadcast as a, you know, a network device. But I have a networked printer, and I don't need a network storage device, at least not yet. So I haven't messed with that. You come up here, you look at the radio, a router, and you see that we got 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. That is the main feature that I like about this router that is unique to wireless AC routers. Most devices in the, you know, current standards use 2.4 gigahertz. That is, you know, the radio frequency that it is on. But there are a few devices, and basically all new cell phones will also work on this 5 gigahertz band, which essentially, depending on specifics, it doubles your speed and increases your range because there's no interference on this band. Like on 2.4 gigahertz, you get interference from microwaves, Bluetooth, your neighbors, you know, just there's a lot more interference here. And on 5 gigahertz, it's much more open band, and it's about twice as fast. So anything that can use a 5 gigahertz network should be using the 5 gigahertz network in order to free up bandwidth for your slightly older, slightly slower devices on there. You don't need to slow them down with extra devices that could be going twice as fast, basically. All right, and we'll come over here to wireless, and this is a nice little basic rundown here. You want to enable it, of course. You put in your SSID, put in your password. This is not my actual password. I changed it for this, just FYI. And you see 5 gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz. I actually generally name mine like this, but in the effort of changing my passwords, I kind of messed it up a little bit, but that's not really important. So, like, I leave my 2.4 network as 2.4 and my 5 as 5, and you just, you know, you want to click on the 5 if you have that available. Okay, and then here's another fun feature, the guest network. Yeah, you can enable these networks and give it a different SSID, a different password. You can allow guests to see each other. This would be for people you don't fully trust. You either don't want them to have any kind of access to your computers, because if they're on your network, they have access to your computers. Somehow, you know, like most people wouldn't know what to do with it to gain actual access, but they technically have it. And this would be if you don't even want them to be able to see each other on the guest network. Like if it was a completely public place maybe, and you just don't want anyone to have any access to anything but the internet, basically. And then this down here, you can allow users to have access to your local network. And I don't know why you would ever really want that, because that to me defeats the purpose. Like if your password was the only thing you were trying to protect. You know, you didn't want everyone to know your password, but you don't care if they have access to your files or whatever. And of course, there's the 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. You'd probably just, I don't know, you know, put them both on, only one. It doesn't really matter. I haven't really used it. I will probably use it in the near future. USB settings. Now, these are things I haven't really messed with, but this is where you would go to, you know, enable or look at your USB devices, whether it be a printer or a storage device. And what do we got there? Print server, yeah. And this would be, like if you plugged a printer into it, this would be where the information is you need to look at. We're going to go back over to advanced real quick, because this is where I like to go because you have more power here. You come over here, mode, you probably want this on router mode. If you don't know what a bridge mode is, Google it. But basically, it is a way to connect another modem to this instead of using this as a modem. But why would you have bought this, basically, otherwise? We come down here to network. There's a lot of ways a lot of things to do here. If you know what you're doing, you really shouldn't have to do anything, basically. You really shouldn't. You could do a couple little things like maybe change your IP addresses or something if that seemed important to you. You come in here, you could change, right here is where you could change your router's IP address and whatnot, but you don't probably need to mess with these things. But I'm going to go click through everything. If you want to read anything specifically, just pause it. Oh, dynamic DNS is kind of neat. It is a way, because you likely have a dynamic IP address, meaning your cable company or whatever gives you an IP address kind of at random. So you can't have a static web page pointing to your IP address because it will change. But you can use one of these services or other services. I use NoIP to host a web name, and my website is derekstitch.ddns.net or something, and I use this service to so my web address will always point to my correct IP address, even though my IP address can change, is the idea behind that. Advanced routing, again, not something you'll probably want to mess with. And this one, you can set up your networks with more detail and separately. You can change your power usage. Like if you find that, your neighbors have great signal for yours, turn this down. If you have a small apartment, you can turn this down. It'll save you power and just, whatever. 11BGN mixed. These are the protocols that can use this 2.4 gigahertz thing. BG G is kind of normal old, N is kind of modern, but there's a newer one called AC. And you'll want to just leave that on mixed unless you know exactly what your devices are going to be. Because if you could leave it on N only because you know you have no G or N devices, it would save a little bit of processing power, basically. Bandwidth, again, not something you need to mess with. Auto is good, but 40 megahertz is kind of what auto means most of the time. The more bandwidth, the more channels data is sending on, kind of thing. And down here, we got channel. And this is where you change your channel if you're broadcasting on the same frequency as your neighbors, basically. And there's a few channels you can go across. If you can, you want to have at least one channel distance in between your signals. And your signal spans at least three channels, basically. So you can get an app on your phone called Wi-Fi. It's W-I, like F-E-Y-E or something like that. And that will scan for network information, and you can see even a chart of what the network looks like. And then you can adjust your channel accordingly. I don't have much neighbor interference. My channels are fine. What else do we got? Primary network, guest network, and this is where you would set your guest network up. And you got a lot more of the details to go. Like you can change your encryption protocol. This has also got to do with your encryption, basically. And you can change the security and just more detailed stuff. This is where I always go when I need to change something. MAC filtering. You can block things or allow things based on their MAC address, which is a hardware address. Like every item has a MAC address, and in fact, you would have had to give this MAC address of your router to your cable company to have it online. Here, wireless bridging. This would be more detailed than probably you'll need. I don't even have mine enabled because I don't use it. And wireless advanced, I'm honestly not sure. DTIM interval, beacon interval. Okay, these are things that you probably, if you don't know what they are, just leave alone. I've messed with them a little bit because you can basically increase your speed if you know what you're going with, but it's not like a noticeable increase for the most part. And then you got the 5G, which 5 gigahertz, which is all just the same stuff, just on a different network. And you got a couple other things, parental controls. I've never messed with this. I don't need to block anyone from anything. Your firewall, you probably don't want to mess with this, again, unless you know what you're doing, because your firewall essentially protects you from people just like what's their IP address? Let's go look at their computer now. Okay, so that basically covers it, and just to do a quick overview here of what I like about this thing is the fact that it can broadcast on multiple networks. This one, of course, having twice as much speed, freeing up all the bandwidth you can, on this. So that's great. You can plug in a USB printer and make it a network printer. You can plug in a USB drive and make it a network drive. And of course, you can just look at what devices are on your network. All right. I believe that covers it for the most part for this. I really like this router. The last router I had I got it because it was cheap. It did the job relatively well. It was cheap. Mission solved. This one, not quite so cheap, but the features are so worth it. I recommend this router to anyone who needs to get rid of that stupid $10 charge a month for renting your cable modem. I totally recommend this router.